Friends, Donald Trump is back on top, and Ursula von der Leyen is in deep political oblivion. This is not just news, but a real political thriller, which I advise you to watch to the end. At first, they all laughed at how Trump promised to put America back in the first place, and now Ursula has to laugh. She just wasn't invited to the inauguration. Yes, this is the case when the words, "I don't need you," turn into an international political scandal. The issue will be very interesting, and I will also tell you about other news that is happening in the USA and Germany right now. Here we go. To begin with, Trump having re-entered American politics, not only won after a very stormy election campaign, but he smashed his opponents to smithereens. His rhetoric, heavily peppered with promises to break the system and make America great again, worked. His opponents stayed on the sidelines, biting their elbows and making up excuses for their fiasco. While joyful voters in the United States were preparing for a new era, panic reigned in Europe. Brussels, especially the headquarters of the European Commission, was trembling with excitement. Ursula von der Leyen, who until recently portrayed herself as the face of European democracy, suddenly realized that her ship could go down. And so Trump himself enters the scene. His first step was to refuse to invite Ursula to the inauguration. And this is not just an omission, but a full-fledged diplomatic spit in the face of the European Union. Why? Because for the head of the European Commission, such humiliation is akin to professional harakiri. Interestingly, the expert's opinion is more unanimous than ever. John Ton of the Institute of International Relations bluntly stated, "The refusal to invite von der Leyen is a signal to the entire European Union. The United States, under Trump's leadership, no longer sees Europe as an equal partner." And his colleague from Germany, Professor Eric Klein, added, "This is a symbolic blow, showing that Europe is losing its importance on the world stage. But this is just the tip of the iceberg." Trump's refusal was accompanied by many hints about his future policy. He even announced the possible introduction of new tariffs on European goods, stressing that America was no longer going to subsidize other people's mistakes. And how did Ursula react? Of course, she sent Trump a congratulatory letter full of phrases about cooperation and mutual understanding. But, as they say, the letter did not reach the addressee. However, Trump himself is known for his indifference to such diplomatic curtsies. Instead, he added oil to the fire by including the leaders of China, Hungary, Italy, and even Argentina in the list of inauguration guests. And these are the countries that don't always agree with Brussels. Against this background, Brussels simply boiled over. Scandals began inside the European Commission. Charles Michel, the head of the European Council, openly stated that Ursula was turning the European Union into a personal instrument of power. The British press, known for its acrimony, called her the weakest head of the European Commission in recent decades. Meanwhile, a real storm has started on social media. Memes like, "Ursula, hold on. Now you know what it's like to be nobody," have spread all over the internet. Users sarcastically discuss how Trump is turning the Cold War with Europe into a real diplomatic comedy. Experts point out that Trump's move has far-reaching consequences. First, he completely destroyed the illusion of equality between the United States and the European Union. Secondly, he showed that the new American policy is a policy of strength, where the weak simply have no place. According to Professor Oliver Stone, not to be confused with the director, refusing to invite Ursula is only the first step. Trump wants to show that the United States is ready to cooperate only with strong and independent states, and the European Union in its current form does not meet these criteria. What's left for Ursula? Her position in Brussels is becoming increasingly precarious. Colleagues are increasingly expressing dissatisfaction with her actions, accusing her of being unable to keep the European Union afloat. Scandals involving her, including accusations of abuse of authority, are resurfacing with renewed vigor. While Ursula is trying to save face, Trump seems to be enjoying his victory. His hardline approach cements his reputation as a leader willing to break bureaucratic rules for the sake of national interests. This story has become a painful lesson for the European Union. Brussels has to admit that it is no longer a major player on the world stage. Disagreements are growing within the bloc. Some countries accuse Ursula of failure, while others simply watch her fall in silence. So, friends, another chapter of the global political drama is over. Donald Trump has once again proved that his politics is a game played by the rules of the strong, and Ursula von der Leyen turned out to be just another figure who did not fit into this new alignment. What do you think? Was Trump's refusal the right step? Or will it only worsen the already difficult relations between the United States and the European Union? Share your thoughts in the comments and we'll continue. A new form of confrontation is unfolding between the United States and the European Union. A digital war related to the influence of the largest social platforms on the political agenda. Brussels is seriously discussing the possibility of imposing sanctions against Elon Musk and his social network X, accusing him of supporting right-wing Eurosceptics. Musk is actively cooperating with political forces such as the Alternative for Germany, AfD, which, according to recent polls, may take second place in the upcoming German elections with record percentages of votes. The Twitter, now X, platform has become an important campaigning tool for right-wing parties, providing an opportunity to freely promote an agenda that criticizes the Brussels bureaucracy and the green transition policy. Unlike traditional media, X allows the distribution of content without explicit censorship, which is alarming for supporters of the European Union. Research by the analytical company Statista has shown that over the past 2 years, the activity of users from Germany in discussing topics such as migration and the economic crisis has increased by 35%. These data indicate the growing role of social platforms in shaping public opinion and strengthening the right-wing agenda. The popularity of right-wing parties in Germany and other European countries is linked to popular discontent with Brussels policies. People are tired of bureaucratic dictates, and Musk, by providing a platform for free discussion, only helps this voice to be heard, according to experts. The European Commission is considering the possibility of imposing fines against X of up to 6% of global revenue for alleged non-compliance with new content regulations. However, such measures are symbolic, as Brussels fears that any harsh sanctions against Musk could trigger retaliatory measures from Washington. The Economic Commission for Europe estimates that about 40% of EU energy imports come from the United States. A tariff war could lead to losses of tens of billions of euros for the European economy. Difficulties are already being observed. The cost of energy for industrial enterprises has increased by 25% over the past 3 years. Lou Riviere, an expert on international relations, emphasizes that any pressure on American companies could trigger retaliatory measures that would be extremely painful for Europe. Brussels needs to carefully calculate its steps. Elon Musk's support for right-wing forces in Europe is exacerbating internal divisions in the EU. For example, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni supports Musk's initiatives, seeing him as an ally in the fight against the Brussels bureaucracy. In Austria, the Freedom Party FP actively uses Twitter X to mobilize its voters. Political scientist Eric Zielig notes that the strengthening of right-wing parties is associated with the growing disillusionment of citizens with traditional institutions of power. Brussels is no longer perceived as a defender of the interests of citizens, and Twitter X has become a platform where public discontent finds an outlet. According to a sociological study by Research 6% of EU citizens believe that the institutions of the European Union have lost touch with the real problems of the population. This explains why right-wing parties continue to gain popularity. The United States is also experiencing a kind of digital thaw. Mark Zuckerberg announced the curtailment of fact-checking, equality, and inclusivity programs in Meta. These steps, according to analysts, are related to concerns about the return of Donald Trump to power. Republicans in Congress have already achieved a reduction in funding for the State Department's censorship structures, as well as reforming moderation practices in IT companies. These changes have also affected the personnel of the largest technology companies. Nick Clegg, who previously held key positions in the development of the company's censorship policy, was removed from the Meta board of directors. He was replaced by Joel Kaplan, a Republican and a supporter of freedom of speech. This highlights the changing mood in Silicon Valley, where the focus on the Republican agenda is increasing. Political scientist Sarah Kahn comments, "Even the largest technology companies are adapting to the new political reality. These are not just business decisions, but strategic steps aimed at survival in the face of increasing pressure from Republicans." The UK is also increasing pressure on Musk and his platform. Lawsuits against X are being discussed in London for covering scandals related to migration policy. In particular, crimes committed by migrants which have long been hushed up by the official authorities. Instead of investigating these events, the authorities prefer to persecute those who cover these topics on social media. The European Commission continues to tighten the rules governing the digital sphere. The new Digital Services Act, DSA, which came into force last year, requires platforms to moderate content more strictly, which has drawn criticism from human rights organizations. Despite these efforts, the popularity of right-wing parties continues to grow. Lethe expert Mal Oker believes that such measures can have the opposite effect. The more the government tries to control the platforms, the greater the distrust of the authorities. People are looking for alternative ways to express their opinions. Disagreements over digital policy are increasing tensions between the United States and the European Union. According to the analytical center RESH, 48% of Americans believe that Europe is too economically dependent on the United States, while 54% of Europeans advocate reducing the influence of American IT giants on the internal affairs of the EU. Political scientist Sarah Hunt notes, "This digital war is not just a conflict between Brussels and Musk. This is a reflection of a deeper crisis in relations between the United States and Europe, where each side is trying to protect its interests but is facing new challenges." Elon Musk and other representatives of American IT giants such as Mark Zuckerberg are becoming key players in political processes on both sides of the Atlantic. While Brussels is trying to maintain control over the digital sphere, the efforts may turn against itself, increasing Euroscepticism. In this global struggle for influence, Elon Musk, using his platforms, continues to shake up the established order. This makes it one of the main challenges for the European elite. The question is whether Brussels will be able to meet this challenge without serious losses for its political and economic future. One more piece of news, and the USA is friends. The fires in California have once again demonstrated how difficult it is to manage one of the richest and most dynamic states in the United States. Natural disasters, as always, caught everyone off guard. Despite endless warnings from experts, it seems that climate change and regular fires have become something like a sudden snowfall in winter for local authorities. Everyone knows this will happen, but no one is ever ready. Governor Gavin Newsom wasted no time in focusing on really important tasks and allocated $25 million to create a fund to counter the possible candidacy of Donald Trump. This decision, however, coincided with the budget crisis, which forced spending cuts on literally everything, including the Los Angeles Fire Department. Now there is a catastrophic shortage of hydrants. Many of them either do not work or are missing, and some of the equipment has long gone abroad. But on the other hand, the state has a fund to fight Trump, and the priorities, as they say, are set. Speaking of firefighters, Joe Rogan, a popular podcaster, warned a few years ago that a major fire in California was just a matter of time. He referred to the words of the firefighters themselves, who openly said that in the event of a large-scale disaster, no one would be able to do anything. And so the prediction came true. Fires broke out, and it turned out that the state was completely unprepared to eliminate them. But at the same time, I am ready to create foundations and make beautiful speeches about the fight for climate justice. Special attention should be paid to insurance companies, which have apparently decided that losses are something that should concern only customers. After the fires of last year, losses totaled a record $60 billion, and companies began to refuse to pay compensation. This, of course, did not cause protests among the population. Did the house burn down? Well, hold on. Your savings will help you. Oh yes, they went to pay taxes. Meanwhile, Governor Newsom, despite what is happening, remains confident in his political ambitions. He is being considered as a possible candidate for the presidency. Imagine this debate. Yes, I governed California at the time of the greatest crises: budget, climate, insurance. And look how wonderful our staff has become. Perhaps Newsom should come up with a few more funds, for example, to support his future election campaign. Who would think that at this time people are losing their homes, and the air becomes unusable for breathing? Environmentalists, of course, do not miss an opportunity to remind that forest fires are, among other things, the result of climate change. In California, Temperatures have risen by 1.5 degrees Celsius over the past 30 years, and the number of fires has increased by 60%. But is this a reason to panic? We're fighting for the environment, even if it's fighting against us. Meanwhile, the rich and famous, who traditionally live in the elite areas of California, also felt all the charms of the elements. Their luxury homes, worth tens of millions of dollars, burned down, leaving the owners at a loss. Perhaps now they will begin to think about the fact that the system that has supported their comfortable lifestyle for so long may fail. In the international arena, the United States does not forget to demonstrate its influence. President Trump, who is awaiting the inauguration, plans to use the act of the 77th year to impose tariffs and increase pressure on partners. The topic of Greenland looks especially interesting. Trump had already tried to acquire it in the 19th year, and against the background of the current situation, this proposal has regained its relevance. The richest reserves of rare earth metals in the bowels of the island clearly attract American politicians. Of course, Denmark and Greenland are still resisting, but who knows what will happen next? American pressure may increase, and elections will be held in Greenland in April, and the topic of threats from the United States will surely become the main topic on the agenda. The ban on foreigners mining rare earth metals, introduced in the 21st year, may be revised if pressure from Washington increases. And now I would like to summarize the material and voice my opinion. My video touches on important and sensitive issues related to politics, the environment, and the economy, but it also demonstrates clear dissatisfaction with the current actions of politicians, which can sometimes lead away from a more objective assessment of the ongoing processes. The issues raised, such as the fire crises in California or the digital war between the United States and Europe, are certainly relevant and require attention. But it is important to remember that solving such complex issues requires balance. And sometimes, in search of short-term solutions or political benefits, we may miss the long-term consequences for society and the economy. Be sure to write your opinion on the material, and I promise to read it. Thank you for your attention. Friends, be healthy. See you.